Hey guys.
Hey, welcome. We are Authentic Marriages. I am Cara and this is Jared, and we are your hosts today. We are going to talk today about communication and more specifically the pursuer withdrawer cycle that is very, very common in most relationships when we get into
Right,
arguments.
exactly. Oftentimes we get into arguments about pretty small things like, who paid the bills or didn't, or, were you supposed to take out the garbage and that kind of stuff. And so we oftentimes set ourselves up because we end up into going into very similar or same types of conflicts where it seems like we're doing the same thing over and over again,
Yeah.
just using different topics.
Yeah.
And that's where this kind of cycle comes in because beneath almost all of our arguments there tends to be a cycle of conflict that we get into, and we talk about that in referral to the pursuer withdrawal cycle.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a pattern that you typically engage in. We like to call it a dance,
Right.
right? So it's kind of like I make one move, you make another move.
Right.
I make this move, you make that move. And you'll start to see that as you start to become aware, you'll start to realize more and more what your dance moves are.
Exactly.
So for the pursuer, sorry, the pursuer is the person that is often approaching the relationship with a problem.
Right.
There is a problem, we need to fix it.
Right.
So the pursuer is often the person that is going to say something, initiate a conversation, and oftentimes it may start off benign, it may
Right.
start off fairly,
Innocuous, yeah.
genuinely peaceful. But sometimes the pursuer can start a conversation in a way that may be attacking, or it may come across as very critical or criticism or a lot of criticizing going on. And so the pursuer can be, often taken in a bad light because they tend to be more aggressive.
Right, exactly. And so oftentimes people may think of them as being like a warmonger or somebody
Yes.
who's just always picking a fight, and it can get really tiresome sometimes. But as you're saying, they're oftentimes trying to address something like a real
Yeah.
issue that they're feeling.
Yeah. And the withdrawal can look peaceful.
Right, exactly. So
Tell us a little bit about the withdrawal
Yeah,
and how that might look in a
right,
relationship.
right. So, withdrawals oftentimes will shut down, maybe emotionally. They may, get really quiet. They may sometimes stonewall. Sometimes they'll walk out of the room in the midst of an argument, which oftentimes get the pursuer even more upset.
Rile all the way up.
Exactly, exactly. But, the key thing to know about both styles in the conflict is that both individuals are doing what they think is best to
Yeah.
help the relationship.
Yeah.
And so the withdrawal may be withdrawn because they're feeling like, okay, if things keep going down this path, this is going to get really bad, really ugly. Things are going to be said that can't be unsaid. So I'm just going to leave this situation before it gets out of hand.
And the pursuer is actually pursuing to help the relationship.
Right.
So this so-called warmonger, this person who seems to be enjoying conflict, in the withdrawer's eyes.
Right.
This person is oftentimes looking to save the relationship. So sometimes a pursuer thinks, hey, I'm the only one fighting for this relationship.
Right.
I'm the only one that's like constantly bringing things to your attention or asking for us to get help or seeking out help. I'm the one that's doing it. And you are like a flat line.
Right.
You are not doing anything. You don't care about the relationship, because if you did,
Right.
you would respond like I do.
Exactly. And so that's one of the things you have to be careful of, is that, because you've played different roles in a conflict cycle, that doesn't mean that you care more about the relationship.
Right.
In your eyes, it may feel that way. And so when you're withdrawal, you may think, okay, this person is always picking a fight. We're having a good time, and then she wants to bring this thing up and
Here
wants
we
to
go
talk about it,
again.
and it's like just we always end in an argument. Why can't we just enjoy a good evening like we used to
Yeah.
before, And so both people are trying to do what they know best
For the relationship.
For the relationship,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly.
Sometimes we can have what we call a burnt out pursuer. So a burnt out pursuer would be someone who was originally a pursuer, and they were in the role of, going to their partner, bringing up, a point of contention, bringing up a concern, but then eventually they get tired. They are like, I'm so done. I'm tired of this. They feel like they're the only one that's pulling the weight in the relationship.
Right.
And so when the pursuer gets quiet, we call that a burnt out pursuer because they are now emotionally checked out.
Right.
And when you have someone in your relationship, whether one or both partners, who are emotionally checked out,
That's a big problem.
that is a huge, huge red flag, right? And so if you know that your pursuing partner has grown silent over the last few months or even years, that is a sign that your relationship may not be where you think it is.
Exactly. Because sometimes, a withdrawal will think, okay, this person has finally figured it out. We don't need to keep arguing.
They're now the peacemaker, right?
Yeah, it's like they're not even trying to get into anything. And they're like, oh, finally, we got some peace and quiet.
Yes.
But, that really means that the relationship is losing its lifeblood, And so that energy that pursuer was bringing is being taken away from the relationship.
Right.
And so when you get to that point, things are pretty serious. And oftentimes you really need to seek help because things can sometimes get to a point where it's hard to turn that thing around because the person is burnt out.
I know one of the questions we had in our last workshop was, how can we tell who is the pursuer and who is the withdrawer when both people are like attacking each other? Right. And so I think that was one of the things that we really had to explain, was that just because you are a withdrawer does not mean you're not going to fend for yourself.
Right.
And it does not mean that you're not going to defend yourself. And so sometimes when we defend ourselves, it does come across as though we're attacking the other person.
Right.
We're criticizing, we're blaming, we're, verbally attacking them or even abusing each other, right? But who is usually the first person to walk off and go solid silent for like days on end, right?
Yeah.
And so that's usually the withdrawal. The withdrawal gets to a place where it's like, I'm done. And I'm not taking this anymore. I'm not participating in this. And it's not to say that the pursuer can't feel the same way and do the same thing as well, just like how we can have a burnt out pursuer. But in terms of your relationship, just consider who is the person that is usually initiating an argument, and then who is the person that is usually leaving the argument, right?
Whether physically or emotionally.
Right. It doesn't mean that you're both not arguing, right?
Exactly.
So that can be a little bit confusing because you feel like, well, both of us are shouting at each other, and both of us are, or attacking each other, or both of us are criticizing, or both of us are defending. And so we all borrow things from each other's toolbox.
Right, exactly.
When we're trying to fend for we're trying to fend for ourselves and defend ourselves, we will pull, those tricks of the trade that work for us or seemingly work for us. But at the end of the day, just sit and consider who typically initiates the conversations that need to happen and who typically shuts it down. Who typically walks away, who typically gets quiet. Even in the midst of the argument, there might be someone that's just quiet. They're not saying much. They're maybe even pretending to listen, but they're not listening. And so that is kind of like your clue. You also have couples where there's attack. An attack is basically like where you have kind of like two pursuers, and you're in almost a verbally abusive relationship with each other. So you're both attacking each other, and that is an extremely unhealthy dynamic.
Right, exactly.
Right?
And most relationships don't tend to fall into that category, but yes, that definitely happens.
Yeah.
It definitely happens.
But even if that does happen, one thing I would say is that it shows that both of you still care.
Right.
Because you care enough to fight.
Right.
And I think that that's something that, especially as therapists, we look at is the fact that if you're still arguing, it means that you care enough about your relationship or about your partner to want to fight for it. And so that's a good sign. And that's really shows that you're still invested in your relationship. And it shows that you can still fix those things that are harming your relationship. However, if you are one of those people that, I'm done, I'm checked out, I don't really care, and you're not arguing.
Well, that's usually when things are really going bad because, when somebody walks in or a couple walks in saying that they need help, but there's really no energy there. Both people seem kind of checked out. They're not fighting, and so there's not a lot of conflict. That is far more concerning in most cases compared to when a couple comes in and they seem to be kind of going at each other.
Right.
Because you go after somebody or go after a situation that you care about. And so you do that even though it may not be the most healthy dynamic.
Right.
It's because you care as opposed to anything else. So if both people are checked out, then both people are saying that, hey, I'm just not that invested in anymore in even having an argument with you. So we don't have arguments with strangers usually about things because we don't really care. We're not in an emotional relationship with them. And so if you get to that point with your partner, then that's a big problem.
And that's almost a telltale sign that you're headed for divorce.
Exactly. Exactly.
And so you can choose to kind of dial it back in and get the professional help that you may need to kind of work on identifying your cycle and stopping the cycle.
Right.
So that's it for today. I want you guys to think about, which pattern you fall in. Do you play the role of the pursuer? Or are you with the withdrawal? And tell us in the comments. And if you need help figuring it out, definitely check us out in the Facebook group, and we will be more than happy to kind of, chat with you guys and, help you figure out
who you are.
Yeah, who you are, right?
Who you are, and
yes. Exactly. And so I would love for each and every person who is looking at this YouTube video right now to please subscribe. So you can stay tuned to our future videos, as well as check out our private Facebook group, Authentic Marriages. Follow us on Instagram at authentic.marriages, as well as stay tuned for our upcoming masterclass. So we'll provide you more details on that soon. All right, guys, take care.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
Bye.